Go first. Hello and welcome. We're so happy to see you. And I'm here with Lenora. Is that accurate? How to say your name?
That is accurate. Lenora Edwards, you got it.
It's not Lenora.
No, it is not. Lenora.
I put my emphasis in the wrong syllable. Miss Lenora Edwards. I hope everyone knows that reference. If not, I don't know, just roll with it like you do everything else on my podcast, where you're like half the stuff, you're just like, I don't know what she said. She's making a fool of herself. That's okay. That's
No,
me.
she's
Welcome.
edutaining.
She is a speech language pathologist. And if you are in the world of autism, that is probably the category, the profession of a person that you have come to know very well. I wanted to have her on here to give us some ideas, to give us some tactics and tools, and for her to talk about what she does. So, Miss Edwards, should I say Lenora? Should I say Miss Edwards?
Lenora is perfectly perfect.
Lenora? Okay. Lenora. Okay, just kidding. I won't really say it. You're like, oh no. What would you say if you could describe for our listeners what you do and how it relates to the audience that we probably have listening?
That is a great question. What do I do? So, as a speech language pathologist with Better Speech, I work as their chief knowledge officer, which I'm very, very happy and blessed to be a part of this incredible team that's over 150 speech language pathologists wide. And we are throughout the entire nation, and we're also internationally based. And we provide online speech therapy services to children and adults who want to improve their communication skills. So as a speech language pathologist, I like to often say we work from the neck and up because we see individuals for swallowing. So we see little ones for their feeding skills, and we also see little ones for their speech, which is their articulation, their voice, their fluency. But then we also see them for language. And language is actually two parts: their ability to understand language and their ability to express language. And then we also see individuals for things like dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ways to improve their voice, swallowing difficulties in adults. So we really do work from the neck and up. And our population is as many people as would like to improve their skills for communication and for even memory and cognitive skills.
How many, if you could guesstimate percentage wise, autistic children and adults do you feel like you see out of that huge population that you've just described? And I'm sure it varies by, state or, but in your personal experience.
That's a great question. Wow. I would say probably about 30 to 40% of
Okay.
my personal caseload I've worked with over my career. So, with individuals who are experiencing autism, whether it's a mild form, um, whether it be a focus, a social communication, we often hear the words pragmatics, where they're following their social cues. Or if we see a severe one where it's really language and communication based, and we have to find ways to help them communicate their wants and needs. So I really do see quite the spectrum of that in the autism community, because everybody just presents as their own individual self.
Very, very true. I know for me, a struggle that we have with speech therapy. My son actually also has a separate food therapist who is a speech language pathologist. We don't receive speech from her, but we receive food therapy from her. Part of what, and I'm sorry I'm throwing such a difficult question at you, but this is like my real brain, like my real.
I love your real brain.
I really want to know the answer to this. Part of what we personally struggle with is that my son's behavior gets often in the way of how effective the session can be. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely.
whether it's you're focusing on these pragmatic skills today, these social cues today, or in the food therapy, he's struggling to attend because of ADHD or whatever it is, that a lot of times, and he, I believe, has a PDA diagnosis. I don't know if you happen, it's not within the DSM-5, it's not, but pathological demand avoidance. And in a therapy session, it's kind of what you do is you make these, not demands like, but demands like, I'm asking you to do something. And he is pathologically designed to avoid that. And so we really struggle with That's what it is. That's
Yeah.
what a session would be. So in your experience, again, this is personal experience versus sort of the role it sounds like you're engaged in now, but in your personal experience in sessions, um, what would you tell a parent like me about bringing their child who presents that way? You know what I
That's a
mean? Sometimes I
absolutely.
feel bad. Sometimes I'm like, as a speech language pathologist, just like, oh, here's that kid. Like this
No.
session is so hard, you know?
No, I completely follow your thought process. So especially with when you're bringing your child into a clinic. So right now with Better Speech, we are an online platform and we are right there in the comfort of your own home where your child is most comfortable. When you're bringing them out of their most comfortable environment, you have a lot of things going on. So whether did they sleep good last night? Did the food digest comfortably with them that they ate earlier that day? What was their mood like? How did school go? How did the other people interact with him? So we have a lot of factors already going on that are contributing to it. Plus when you have that avoidance component, that can be really challenging for
Yes.
sure. Absolutely, absolutely. And what I would encourage people to do is to set your child up for success as much as possible. Obviously, not everything is in our control. But if we know,
What?
I know it's all
Who
work.
said that?
And
I don't know about that.
if
That's
possible,
true.
set them up for success by putting things in their favor. And especially with the avoidance component, you know, as humans, we are designed to want to have authority and domain over ourselves.
Yes.
So, him going to a place to go do something that he might not want to do, we already have that resistance in place.
Right.
So, allowing him to make the decisions whenever possible. And children love to make decisions, which is great because they're often being told what to do. So, anytime we can flip the table and say, okay, well, you choose. Okay, you make the decision. Even if it's as little as, are we want this blue cup or this blue cup? They
Right.
made the decision and that they go, "Oh, I chose victory." So, okay, do we want to have this snack with therapy or do we want to have this snack? Do you want to take this blanket or this sweatshirt? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And that way they have a bit more control over the things that are going on. And if in time they learn, "Oh, I did make that decision." Because, sometimes they can flip on a dime and go, "I
All
don't
right.
want it anymore." And you're like, "Well, this is what you decided. So
Right.
let's continue to learn from this." And absolutely, especially when you have little ones where their nervous system is just so much is going on. They're just full of energy, and it could be positive energy, it could be less than positive energy. A great thing to do as the parent or the guardian is to find ways to help keep yourself calm because
Hmm.
your nervous system, we naturally link up to people. It just happens constantly. Energetically wise, when you can find ways to keep yourself as calm as possible, it will help their nervous system. And what I often encourage people to do is to really watch your voice, but also you can even go, and this isn't art, it does take a little bit of practice, move slower, be more
Ooh.
intentional. And that way they know, okay, I can go as chaotic as I want, but this person clearly is not in alignment. I need to match up with them because you are naturally the authority to your child because you are the guardian, you are the parent, you are the mother, you are the father, whatever the role is, you are naturally the authority. So they're going to eventually link up with you, but those are some things that are really in your control, especially when you change your posture, your breathing, your voice, and how you present. And the first few attempts that you work at this is why it's an art. It might not work the first time, but
Yes.
practice, it will start to take on its form of being in control. So that way, when you go into the feeding room, it's something else that's in your toolbox that says, okay, well, this is how we're going to act. Okay, that's fine. And ride it out. If they're having a meltdown, ride it out. Let them ride it out. You stay calm because there's so much going on that they're doing the best that they can. Even though you might be like, I know you're doing this on purpose, they're still doing the best that they can. And those are some great techniques to help set the deck in their favor, set the odds in their favor, control what you can, because we don't always have the ability to not go into a clinic or not go into the store or not go to the grocery shopping. we don't always have that ability to not participate. When we do participate, how can we make it as good as possible, as positive of an experience as possible? And positive doesn't have to be like, I'm a cheerleader and I got my pom poms out.
Right.
A positive experience, as in there wasn't a meltdown, there wasn't this massive issue that occurred. It was still a positive experience, and recognizing that as, okay, that worked in my favor. Write it down. This worked. They ate this today. Write it down. Keep track of what's going on.
I love the talking about what I know it as is co-regulation, that you set that and you explained it very well. That rather than adding to their chaos, adding your chaos to their chaos, that you have to do everything within your power to slow down. I've noticed that, and you'd mentioned a lot of things that I just want to like recap because it was really good. So slow down your speech, slow down your movement. And the movement, I don't know that I've thought about that. I think I slow down my speech, and I think naturally when my speech slows down that I start moving slower, but I don't think I've ever deliberately been like, slow down your movements. So I'm going to kind of check myself next time that happens, because I got to do it daily. Okay. Don't judge me. I have to do that practice multiple
That's why you
times a day.
practice daily.
Yes. That's why it's a practice, right?
You brush your teeth daily. That's
That's
a daily practice.
I mean, we hope so, right? I mean, when looking at me, you're like, well, maybe not. It's okay. I do. Don't worry. Everyone is like, oh, I don't think she does. I think she did. No, I really do brush my teeth every day. You're welcome. I know so many parents who are triggered by their child's behavior, and that's so valid and real. What I try to remind myself is I have this like kind of switch in my mind where my emotional reactionary self gets turned off in a moment, when a crisis like that, so that I can function to everyone's best result. So for their help and assistance, for whatever, which always ends up better, right? But what I have noticed is that residually, I have taken all that and it gets shoved down somewhere deep, right? So then I turn that back on and I'm like, ugh, it's still there. It like didn't just dissipate into nothingness. So I found that as I co-regulate and as I provide that kind of center for my child, I have to take very deliberate time after to privately address those feelings that did not have their moment to be expressed.
Completely.
Because that is not how I'm feeling in the moment. I am feeling all sorts of other panic and stress and whatever, but I understand the need and I understand overall this will be beneficial to both of us. But then sometimes I think we forget after. You don't want to build up resentment. You don't want this to turn into sort of this heart dragging depression, honestly, is how I end up feeling after if I don't address it. So whether it's a good workout or a good cry session in the shower or just a moment privately to be like, that sucked so bad. I'm so embarrassed. And I don't know, do you ever listen to Brene Brown?
I love Brene Brown.
So
She's
she
so
would call
good.
it your SFD.
Nice.
So SFD stands for shooty. I'll say shooty first draft. It's not shoot, if you catch my drift. And it's
Chippy.
all of the poopy. Your
Chippy.
poopy first draft. Okay. And it's meant to be private or with a very intimate confidant. That it's everything that you're afraid to say. You're not filtering anything that you're saying or thinking, and you're giving and they may not even be true things, but it's what you're thinking and feeling. And then only once you kind of gut that out, you can apply some context on top, or you could say, yeah, that sucked. Da, 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 da. And, this happened and that was actually really great. And, this is how learning looks. It looks like a lot of failure. It looks like a lot of, and I handled that really well. I did my piece as well as I could. And that, so only once you kind of gut that out, can you really apply that perspective versus like a toxic positivity where it's like, but it's okay. It's okay. We're all going to be fine, and then it's inauthentic and those other icky things just stay sitting in there.
Oh my God, you could not have said that more beautifully. That is
You know what
so,
I mean?
so accurate, because there are times when I tell this to my clients, especially when they're in those moments where they feel like they're not having a great day. The parent, I often tell them, or the guardian, you did nothing wrong, because
Mm,
when they bring their child to a therapist, or when we're working online with speech therapy, or you're working somewhere with somebody and it's out of the what you consider the norm, people often internalize it thinking, I did something wrong to my child
yeah.
and I am bad. And when I'm in this moment where my child is being very chaotic, I feel like a bad parent and that
Yes.
person is judging me. And it's so much shame and heartache hitting that person's system that this is all they can respond with. So I love that you said a flip switches, the flip goes off, things switch, and I change so that I can then work on this at another time. And the
Right.
way that you worked on it and how you process it is so beautiful, because we are energetic beings. So we always have energy going on. And because this is a fantastic world where there's two sides to everything, you can love your child to the moon and back and also want to scream in the same time frame.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You can have this 1 second and then be over here the next second. And the way that you process that and how you shared that was so, so absolutely beautifully vulnerable, but also so honoring and so absolutely true to being human, and allowing that venting, allowing it to come out of your system so that you don't internalize and everything's going to be okay. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. It
Right.
might not be. And
Right.
that's okay.
Right.
Us as adults need to actually honor and respect that icky component and say, okay, bleh, it's out of my system. Great. And put something good in its place. Oh my God, Laura, that was amazing.
Well, and she says, embrace the suck, right?
Mm-hmm.
That sucked really bad. The end.
The way to sugarcoat it.
Like a lot of people think it has to be this or this when it can be this and this. So
Yeah.
seemingly opposite things. I talked about this in my last podcast episode with somebody, dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, where it
Mm-hmm.
seems like these two seemingly opposite things can't exist. And our brain likes to put things into different categories and camps, right?
Completely.
But two opposite things can exist simultaneously. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to remind our brain that's naturally trying to put things into camps that it's not positive or negative, that
Mm-hmm.
it's just an existence. It just is.
It just
It
is.
just is. And
It just is.
there are great things and not great things and ebbs and flows. But as soon as we try to start labeling emotional reactions or specific behavior as this was good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
then we can't really sit genuinely anywhere. And that doesn't vibe right. Like some part of our brain is like, but, and then it can never really settle. But if we can exchange that word but to be and.
And
So instead of saying, okay, I know Sandra's like super nice, but oh my gosh, did you hear her in the meeting last week? Like and it's like you can have you can say that same thing and have the second statement not detract value from the first. You can say, oh my gosh, so I love Sandra. She's so nice. And in that last meeting, like she was like, what's going on? So you know what but that's in everything. Like
mm-hmm.
I love my child and he drives me crazy.
Completely.
I
Duality.
love what he has taught me to be patient and compassionate. And the learning process to get there has been heartbreaking and defeating and wonderful and trying. It's
Absolutely.
all those things at the same
All
time.
of them.
There's no like urgency and no real authenticity in deciding it's
Mm-hmm.
this way or this way.
Yeah.
And that has been so liberating for me. And I bet for you, like the power of language, right? Just
Completely. Oh my God.
change of that one word can
change.
change the entire meaning, an entire way of thinking and functioning as a person. Like
Completely. It
The
really
power to help
does.
people think that way is really cool. I mean, would you say, I know so many families that really struggle with food. So I'm totally switching gears here. Really struggle with food. For my child, it's a lot of, because it's such a sensory experience, it's all your senses combined into one action. And so you're not just tasting it, because that's really the only thing people think about. Maybe they're
Mhm.
thoughtful enough to think of the texture. But other than those two things, they don't really realize
About
that.
it.
Have you
Yeah.
ever like plugged your nose and tried to eat something?
Mhm.
You can't really taste it.
Yeah.
So your scent is very much involved. You're smelling the food as it comes closer, like the restaurant you're in, you're smelling the garlic and the olive oil or whatever it is. Maybe you have like that person at the table next to you ordered the sizzling plate of fajitas. And so the big triumphant guy's coming with the tray that's like, and so you're hearing it, you're seeing it come, like there's all your senses are so involved. And then people wonder, well, what's the problem? Like, why is this such a challenge for them? Like, just be
Yeah.
flexible. Just like try it, just eat it. And then there's the variability with food. So I've noticed that for me and my autistic friends, it's like the things they can depend on from item to item as being consistent is what they tend to gravitate towards. So in other words, apples, they're green, they're yellow, they're red, they're crunchy, they're mushy, they're mealy, they're sweet, they're sour. There's so many different. So when you try apples, do you like apples? It's like, I tried an
Maybe.
apple, this brand, this time, and it was really good. But there's been so many other times where I'm like, I'm literally not gonna, like, I'm not really interested. So the inconsistency can lead to like a lack of trust. Like, I don't want to try that blueberry. That one was really
Very much
sour.
so.
That one was really, it had a bug in it. I don't
Yeah.
know. But
Very much
if you
so.
have lunchable to lunchable, it's gonna be pretty much the same. You can, the rainbow goldfish that's in this box is gonna taste like the rainbow goldfish in this box. You know?
It's
So for
predictable for them.
it's and predictability is safety for a lot of
Yes.
these kids.
Very much so.
So
So
how can parents better facilitate, like, could you just give us some food therapy tips,
food therapy tips, absolutely. So
please?
the what I love about working with Better Speech and using food therapy right now, if we go to a clinic near me, I live in the state of Pennsylvania, they're still wearing masks and they're still wearing shields and they're still under layers of protection, which I understand it's pandemic and we want to create a safety and take our appropriate precautions. What they're also doing is they're still separating the parent guardian from the child. So
Oh,
now we've completely changed their environment. We've taken them out of a familiar environment of their home or even taken them from school and we brought them however far it took to get to that clinic and were brought into another environment. So those are things that are working against them already, especially for little ones who maybe or anybody who may be autistic and already experiencing a lot of sensory overwhelm and then adding a mask or a face shield on top
mm,
of that plus a different chair and plus different food. So
yeah.
there's already many contributing factors. So when we're at home and we're conveniently right on Zoom, what a great thing is that they're in their most comfortable environment. They're in their most familiar seat. It is predictable because there are certain safety measures already in place. They know the environment, they know who's around them. It is familiar and safe for them. And to approach it, and I love that I can actually work with the parents in their home environment or the guardian in their environment, but also with their most familiar foods. So we can set it up for success and in allowing those certain factors, whether they like to sit in a certain chair or they like a certain bowl or they like a certain plate or a certain cup, that's certainty. You want to offer as much certainty and as much predictability as possible when you know you're going to offer variety because it's stacking the deck with them. It's working
Mm,
with that nervous system, with that little one. And that's really important because also they need to be able to trust you, the person who's providing that food. And sometimes we'll have parents like, oh, I snuck this into their food and into their favorite food. What that actually will create distrust
mm,
because their favorite food is no longer their favorite food. And it can actually have a reverse effect of avoidance because
Right.
this was safety food I had always taken. Something something went wrong that one time, and they will focus on that one wrong time
Right.
versus the record of 100 times of safety that they associated with it. So when you're offering them new foods, allow those safe foods to still be there. And then once you start, depending on your little one, let's say you're wanting to present a new food first, and it may be as small as having it in the room with them and letting them visually see it. It doesn't have to be close to them, it doesn't have to be on the plate, but allowing them to be around it because you've now just brought in something brand new. Let their system get used to it. Then as they build, if let's say they're perfectly okay with the carrot that's halfway across the table
Mhm.
on a plate by itself, no problem. As you move that plate closer or as you move that one carrot closer, how are they responding? And it's great that you're in that safe environment because you can follow your child's cues. You can see what they're doing. Are they exploring it? Are they okay if it's near them? How
Hmm.
close can they get to it? If they start to touch it, that's a great thing. That's their system getting used to that variety, that new thing, because there's other things safe wise already in place, whether it's food or however you set up the room or whatever the case may be. That's why those safety components are so important, and offering variety at their child's pace, allowing it to come in and be, and they're the ones in charge. They may say, okay, it's on my plate. I'm not eating it. Okay, no problem. I'm super happy that you left it on your plate. Thank you so much. The other alternative could have been that it went sailing across the room. So if it's
Yeah.
on the plate, woohoo!
We're in the
Making
sailing across the room club. So yeah.
Yeah, and you're allowing them to explore. Another great one is maybe they don't want to eat it. Maybe they just want to play with it, and have them have positive experiences playing with their macaroni, playing with their hands in yogurt. And it may seem silly, like, well, food is for eating, but they need to build trust with food. And that is so important because, as you mentioned, in that restaurant, there are so many things going on. In the home, it may be the chair. In the restaurant, it may be the other people that are around them, that they're already picking up on this variety of energy. It smells, it's lighting, it's loudness. There's so much going on. And when we can offer safety and predictability and protection to that child, that nervous system, you're setting them up for success, which is really
Mm.
what everybody's aiming for.
Right. I know I love the idea of having play involved and how um for us having play involved in everything, how disarming that is, how that keeps the prefrontal cortex engaged and they're not like in this back panic space of fight or flight, freeze. They're not in
Yeah.
that space where they can't learn anymore or can't make decisions. They're just reacting.
Hmm.
We have found that play has you can still introduce them and challenge them and stretch them while they're still in a space where they can make decisions. And honestly, not a single
Completely.
made it with trauma. They won't feel traumatized. Like I'm shoving a carrot down his throat. Like, yeah, that's not
Hmm.
going to be conducive to a positive learning experience. The next time
Hmm.
he's not going to be like, yay, I'm here. Yay, or yay, it's this person on the
Absolutely.
screen. It's going to be like, oh no, we're doing this. I hate this.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
One thing that you mentioned that I appreciated, but I also personally struggle with is not only setting them up for success, but also helping, allowing them to set the pace for things. I know as a parent, I feel this panic and urgency to have them meet every goal now.
Hmm.
And I think that comes from a good place. It comes from wanting to set them up to be able to do what they want and be who they want to be and be able to make those decisions and arming them with the appropriate tools to make those decisions in their
Hmm.
life, to live a most joyful life, whatever that means
Hmm.
to them. But on the other hand, that's not helpful or appropriate to be like, so I'm pressuring you, I'm pushing you in an unhealthy way to go beyond what you're capable of constantly, because nobody likes to feel like they're constantly failing or disappointing somebody, or they're constantly not meeting expectations. That kind of message communicated to a child or an adult, just a person, over and over again, will communicate the message that that's who you are. That is what you do, or will make you terrified to try anything ever. Just absolutely refuse. How I feel like I'm like talking to my mom. Mom, how do I not do that? That's my deep articulate question. How do I, with the understanding of that, that's a very natural thought for me to have, a natural thought process. I don't shame myself for it, but I recognize it. And I want to make sure that I have the appropriate balance of, I want your success. I want to accept you wholly, entirely as you are right this second, and facilitate, push, enable you to be as happy as you can in life. Like, how, and that has not nothing, but I mean, you're a piece of that process. So either how you enable that process, or what you observe from parents, or however you want to respond to that huge diatribe that I just tossed your way.
That is an awesome diatribe that you just tossed my way. So especially when naturally, when we're with younger ones, we want them to do their best. We want them to shine. And it's very, very natural. And it comes from a very, very good place, which is completely beautiful and should be celebrated, because there are plenty of people that unfortunately just like, whatever, you're on your own.
That's true. That's true.
And it's great that you want their success. And I love that what's important to you about that and what's important to them is something to really focus on, but also learning them as they, and pointing out to them, because they don't know. Wow, you did something new. And I love that even if it was a fail, you didn't do a great job. That's awesome. You know what that means? You're learning. And it's really about reframing it, because there are people that will say, even Ben Franklin, when he made the invention of the light bulb, and they go, you failed 200 something times. He goes, I didn't fail. I found 200 something ways to create the light bulb, or to not create the light bulb.
Right.
All he did was just change his words and the perspective. When you change that language, when you change that component, you reframe it and you see things completely different. So you're not necessarily pushing your child. You might be encouraging them to explore, encouraging them and supporting them, saying, yeah, that was really hard. You know what that was? There was this one time I did this and that was so hard for me. But guess what? I kept at it. And eventually it became easy. When things are hard, and especially naturally, so we are wired to want safety, want comfort, and we are wired to avoid things that make us uncomfortable. It's a very normal thing. And we sort for it. We are sorting constantly for things that can go wrong. So you're like, oh, well, am I negative, or am I just naturally wired to be it? When we first came out of the cave, we didn't go, wow, look at the sun, it's shining. We came out going, what's going to eat me? And what's the problem? We came out with caution. So knowing that we naturally come out with caution, we also have to find this beautiful way of saying, okay, that does look interesting. Let me explore it. Not, that looks hard, I don't want to do it. That's interesting. It's new. I've never seen that before, or I've never experienced that before. And even if I did, oh man, that time, that was challenging that time, but I survived.
Right.
I was okay, which means I can try something new and I'll probably still be okay. So let me just try it. And embracing that suck component, that's okay. It might not feel great the first time that we try something, and it might not feel great the first 15 times that we try something, but you're learning as you're going, and you learn what is working for you. You learn what is working for your child. And especially as the parent, you get that bird's eye perspective of writing stuff down, going, okay, that worked out really well. What were the threads that made that really come easily to them, versus okay, that was a little challenging. How else can we work it to their advantage? How can we stack the deck with them? What else might they need? And setting them up for success. And success isn't necessarily, oh, it was effortless and I reached the top with that quick brush.
Yeah.
It's I maneuvered through the situation and I learned something, and
Mhm.
celebrating that learn and celebrating that even if it didn't work out, but you learned. And that's a great thing. And you were able to move through that component. So, really encouraging your children, that's what we all want to do. But encourage them. And if things didn't work out, that's okay. There's always tomorrow. We'll try it again. And approaching it from that way versus, you did a terrible job. What was wrong with you? I
Right.
don't think most people would do that, and probably not anybody on this listening to this podcast,
Yeah.
because everybody listening absolutely
Yeah.
cares. And how do you know? You're on the podcast. You're listening,
Right.
educating yourself on learning and exploring things that way, and encouraging your children from that standpoint. Not necessarily keep going, push, 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 push. Encouraging. Change your words. Change your tone.
Hmm. I think a difficult thing that I had to learn through therapy for myself was separating my child's success from my success.
Yes, totally.
And I didn't think I was so interwoven in that way with my children until my therapist, and I say, "Can you please repeat that? I need to write that down." Like I literally asked for a pen and paper to write down what she
Completely.
said. Excuse me, because I knew that that wasn't okay to do, but I was like, "But that's
Mm-hmm.
not what I'm doing at all."
Mm-hmm.
Until she said, "Did you know your children are having their own experiences in this moment?" So
Mm-hmm.
that moment you described to me, your children were having their own interpretations, feelings, emotion, whatever of that experience. And I don't know why, but I was like, "What? You need to
Yeah.
say that again." Because part of me,
You just don't think
um,
about it. It's a different perspective.
it was just in this like manage mode.
Yeah.
I'm just managing this being rather than they are experiencing
Mhm.
whatever is happening in this moment, and my role is to support them in that experience rather than to control what they're doing and be 100% responsible and in control of everything that's coming out of them. Because I think as much as whatever society is tells us that our kids need to quote unquote behave in public, we're not really given opportunities to practice that good behavior, whatever that
Oh,
means in
yeah.
public. So my child has to fail in public, like you said, in learn, which is
Yeah.
ugly and not always pretty, has to fail in public to be able to have that learning experience. They can't build a tolerance for the awful sensory experience that is the grocery store without going to the grocery store and building a tolerance through having quite a few meltdowns and having quite a few like, ugh, and then we can troubleshoot. Let's bring sunglasses and ear defenders.
Mhm.
Or, this is a situation where you need to have something positively distracting. So whether I hand you a device for that occasion, or toward the end, if we've made it, you get to play on my phone for a while, whatever it is. But I feel like the grace from it's just supposed to have somehow already happened somewhere magically. I don't know where that place is, but we haven't found it. Um, and I think that all contributes to the urgency that we feel and pressure we feel as parents to like socially. I have been told that I am 100% responsible for my child's behavior, and not just responsible as in I will make amends, I will apologize when appropriate, but responsible as in I can control my child. Um, and I know for me, that to me means this is a personal task, that this is my behavior we're talking about, that somehow my behavior can directly control this other entire human being, which obviously isn't accurate.
That's so much.
Um, which I get that here, but not here.
Mhm. Mhm.
I get that in my head, but not
Yeah.
necessarily emotionally. So as I pull that apart and say, like, why? and willing to get curious rather than defensive about how I'm feeling. Why is that so triggering to me? Why am I having such a big reaction to the meltdowns in public, but not in private? Why, but understanding that your child's success, wherever it is, but also including with speech services that they are being provided, that when a session goes not so great, whatever that may mean to you, whether they were perhaps defiant, maybe they refused to do anything, that is not, I don't know that I would say fault, that's not a direct reflection of anything you've done or haven't done. That's not something necessarily that was in your control. It just is. That's how it went.
It really
That's how
just
it went.
is.
It just is. That's how
Yeah.
it went. And then I
think
love how you talked about the threads. So finding in this system of data and observations that we have collected, what are the things that we are finding pattern-wise that are triggering a less successful, whatever successful might mean, a less successful experience. He seemed like he wasn't in a very good space to be able to really be bold and adventurous and brave. He seemed to be struggling with, and then finding those threads of, well, the time of day was this. That was actually right after lunch. He might not be very hungry, and finding those patterns. And then in the successful zone, we tried it first thing in the morning when he was really hungry and he didn't have breakfast yet. And he was so much more in conjunction with his appetite, willing to try those new things. He wasn't trying to shove down that other stuff with a full breakfast of, for us, it would be rainbow goldfish. Don't judge me. That's what he presents to me. So that's where we're at.
Just
And
is what it is, and that's okay.
It's so important to be tracking that data. And by data, I don't necessarily, well, I do recommend writing it down because you will miss stuff if you don't. But if at least not writing it down, you at least have that perspective of curiosity, of you're adjusting variables to say, well, this time this was consistent and it was successful. This time, it was this thing again, and he had that chair that was wobbly, and it really seemed to distract him almost the entire time. Could that really be what, kept him from being able to focus? Let's get him a different chair, for heaven's sakes. And I love that you keep saying stacking the odds, or stacking the deck in their favor, because it can be, I think we've all experienced times where we feel like bad things come in threes, like something happens and we're like, okay, that was awful. I'm trying to readjust. And then something else hits, and then something else hits. And we're like I can maybe handle with a lot of effort one thing, but when it just keeps, and then little things start falling apart. I start forgetting appointments. I start, physically not taking care of myself. Sometimes halfway through the day, I'll be like, did I shower? Like things that are such a part of regular routine that because of other things that are coming in, I just start losing track, and I start being like a less functioning, capable human being. And obviously I'm not happy on top of that. That it makes sense, especially for individuals who have a neurotype where they're automatically set to struggle with a lot of those things, those changes in schedule, those changes in expectation, just a lot of changes, period. And then we're not being cognizant of how are we presenting this big, scary, scary, scary thing to this child? Are we doing it in a space where we just came off of 2 other therapies that also had a lot of other demands? He's already had to be really flexible today. He's all, and then we somehow act like, I don't understand why I just can't do it. I don't get it. But we do our adult neurotypical version of those things all the time. I think that was all to say, I totally get it. And I love how you keep saying that.
You have incredible awareness, Laura.
No question in there. That was just me saying, I get what you said,
I
in a
love it.
very long, long way.
You said it beautifully.
I don't mean to, but getting people to teaching, but not in a formal way of teaching, getting people to understand a concept in a way that they can relate to in their life. So it's embedded in a deeper, more meaningful way is like what, without being braggadocious, it's like what I'm good at and
You
what I
are
thrive in doing.
extraordinarily good at it.
Well, that's really nice. As I'm like, I did this, and you're like, yeah, I guess so. And I'm like, well, thank you very much for saying that. I
You did
totally
it
concur with
beautifully.
that observation. No, it's just something that I have found that so many people are looking for,
Mhm.
and I didn't know that it was a skill. I thought it was just I don't know. I just thought everybody could do this. And especially with my kids being how they are and requiring that extra level of being able to put myself in their shoes to say just like you described, what have their experiences been today? What kind of a position are they in to feel good enough, safe enough, brave enough to take that extra step and leap? Like, how have I facilitated on my part that success? Um, a lot of people can't think really deeply about that position. You know, they're more
I don't know
thinking
if they've
in their
explored
space,
it.
you know?
Yeah. They've been kind of really wrapped up in thinking like, well, this just is how it is and this is what you have to do and a lot of have tos and a lot of forced and your ability to have that thought flexibility and to offer it the way that you do is incredible.
Well, that's like, I say, well, that's nice, as if like you were like, also, Laura, let me give you a compliment. I'm really like setting you up to be like, it's like when someone has like nice earrings and they'll be like, "Well, hey, how are you doing?" And they're like putting it in your face. And you're
Not
like,
at
oh my
all.
gosh, did you get something new? It looks so nice. Oh my gosh, this is old. It's in the back of my closet. But really,
No.
all of that is just to say, like, so much of what you have been explaining is just good teaching. You know, it's really thoughtful and it's really
As is
um,
yours.
facilitating in a compassionate way through understanding someone's position empathetically, um, rather than this non-emotional, you'll do it because I said so kind of, and then you're shocked when you're just hit by this wall over and over again. Um, I think that's and then again when you talked about having it be in the home and the extra comforts and safety that that can provide to a child who's already triggered by maybe they hate going in the
Oh,
car, you know, maybe
it's
the office,
it's
the
huge
lighting in any
benefits.
office is just horrific.
Yeah.
It's those overhead like,
Mhm.
you know, and even those drive me crazy.
There's just
Um,
massive benefit too, because also you're not separating the parent guardian from the child and
yeah.
they get to be a part of it. And the beautiful thing is that we're in the home with you and we're with your child, but also you get to be there. So, what this communicates to your child is that they're seen, they're heard,
Mm,
they're important, they matter, you
yeah.
care. There's so many incredible benefits for online speech therapy, especially at Better Speech. We offer a free 15-minute consultation if you think this is a great fit for you. But there's so many incredible benefits, and it's why the clients that we have make gains so quickly and
Mm,
they graduate so quickly because of this approach. And it's so, so important that when you have a child that needs speech therapy, that their parent or guardian is involved. It's so
right.
important.
Well, and beyond the office, like our goal isn't to be successful in a speech language pathologist's office.
Mhm.
That's not our goal. Our goal
Yeah,
is to be able
be
to
in the
take
home.
those skills with us, right?
Mhm.
But I know for my child, he will eat different things based on the environment.
Yeah.
Like he will is fine eating certain things at school. And he
Mhm.
is fine eating certain things at his food therapy appointments right now.
Mhm.
And he is fine eating things at home, but they don't cross
Blind. Yeah.
usually. And so
Yeah.
environment, as we know, and that's the same for anything, not just food, but a willingness to try things. Uh, the environment has a huge role in what that is. And the goal, like I said, isn't to be in the room, it's to be at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
It's to be in the home. It's to
Yeah.
be using the
Functional.
utensils that we have at our disposal.
Mhm.
You're not being
Absolutely.
distracted by, well, this person has this around the border of their room. Like, I want to go look at it, which isn't a bad
Mhm.
thing. It's a new environment and
Yeah.
curiosity. But in our house, it's
Yeah.
like, I know this. This is familiar. This is
Yeah.
not distracting to me.
Yeah.
I'm able to focus
Completely.
on, like, it's being able to bring you to like the kitchen table,
Completely.
which is
Completely.
really, really cool.
Yeah.
If you could tell the parents of autistic children one thing, whether it's something that you've seen them struggle with, maybe like a you can do it kind of thing, or just a tip, advice, things that you've observed, if you could just like get them to instill in their soul something, no pressure,
No pressure.
just the most profound thing you can possibly think of, go.
I would say to allow yourself grace and
Oh,
to allow yourself in those moments of frustration, in those moments of deep pain and despair of, oh my God, this day won't end. Allow yourself grace and to recognize that you are doing the best that you can.
mm,
And your child is doing the best that they can. Everyone is doing the best that they can with the tools, time, energy, and knowledge available to them. So allow yourself to just go and allow yourself to breathe and move through it as gracefully as you can because you're doing a great job.
mm. That's so hard to do, right? That is so hard to do. And I feel like we're all about extending that grace to other people,
Mm-hmm.
but to ourselves,
Give yourself permission.
it's like we have
I
this different.
allow myself.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
When I can't motivate myself on behalf of myself, which I should, right? When I can't do that, I try to say, um, at the least, your child will learn so much more through your example than they will by what you're verbally teaching them, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I want my child to be able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
I need to practice that genuinely myself.
Yeah,
If I want my
absolutely.
child to say, but you know what, I'm doing my best, I need to genuinely practice saying to myself, but you know what, I'm doing my best. Or I shouldn't say but. And you know what? I'm doing my best. We peed on the floor. We mashed, there's chocolate pudding on the wall, and we did our best.
We did our best.
And we did our best.
Absolutely. We did.
Thank you so much. Can you
Thank you
please
so much.
tell our listeners where they can find more information about you? And I will also include that in the show notes. But
Thank you so much. You can visit us at betterspeech.com. And thank you for including all our social media in the show notes. We're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media or you can contact us directly. We are there to be of service. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and we will do our very best to guide you and offer you further service from there.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Lenora. Just kidding. Lenora. Don't hate me. I'm so sorry.
Too funny.
That's kind of how I am. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.